My name is Riley, and this is not just a story, it's a confession. A confession of blood, sweat, betrayal, and the kind of revenge people whisper about in hushed tones but never dare to live through. I built my clinic from the dust of nothing, from the nights when my body shook with exhaustion and my bank account bled dry, from the mornings when I looked at my reflection and told myself, "You will not break." And now, after years of sacrifice, my family, my own blood stood at my door with their greedy hands open, wanting everything I created, without ever lifting a finger, without ever paying a dime. It started 12 years ago. I was 24, barely out of medical school, my white coat crisp but my soul frayed. My father told me I was wasting my life chasing an impossible dream. "Doctors are already everywhere, Riley," he said, cigarette smoke curling around his lips like poison. "You'll never make it running your own clinic. You'll drown in debt. You should have taken the safe job at the hospital like your cousin did. Benefits, steady pay, security." But security was a coffin for the living. I didn't want to be just another cog in someone else's machine. I wanted my name on the wall. I wanted people to walk through doors I opened. I wanted to build something that could outlive me. The first office I rented was a rotting building on the corner of Maple and Fifth. The paint peeled like dead skin, the floor smelled of mildew, and the ceiling leaked whenever it rained. My savings were gone in weeks. I lived in that clinic, slept on a cot in the back room, showered at the IMCA, ate instant noodles every night. My family never visited, never asked if I needed help. They laughed at me during Sunday dinners when I dragged myself in smelling like disinfectant and desperation. Still playing doctor in that shack. My brother Dean would sneer. He worked in finance, wore tailored suits, and carried himself like he owned the sky. "When you fail, don't come crying to us." I never cried to them. I cried to the walls when no one was watching, cried to the moon when patients didn't come, cried to myself in the bathroom mirror while scrubbing bloodstains from my coat. But I never gave them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Then, slowly, the tide shifted. Word spread that there was a young doctor on Maple and Fifth who listened, who didn't rush, who treated patients like family instead of numbers. People came. They came in trickles at first, then in floods. I watched the waiting room fill, watched children clutch their mothers' hands, while old men nodded at me with trust in their eyes. I expanded, bought new equipment, hired a nurse, then two, then a receptionist. The shack became a sanctuary. My sanctuary, years passed, and the clinic stood tall like a monument to my suffering and my triumph. And that's when my family came crawling back. It was a Sunday afternoon when they showed up. I had just finished a 12-hour shift and was sitting in my office, staring at the certificate on the wall that read, "Riley Carter Family Clinic." My hands still smelled of latex and antiseptic. My eyes burned with fatigue. That's when I heard the knock. Dean walked in first, polished as ever, his cologne cutting through the sterile air. Behind him was my sister, Claire, wearing pearls and entitlement. My parents followed, their faces stretched into smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Riley," my mother said sweetly, as if we hadn't gone years barely speaking. "We've been thinking. It's time we got involved with the clinic, as a family." I raised an eyebrow. "Involved, how so?" Dean spread his arms like he was presenting a business pitch. "You've done an amazing job here, but you're missing the big picture. Expansion, franchises, investors. We could turn this place into an empire, with my financial expertise and Claire's connections. We could take this national, Carter clinics everywhere." I stared at him, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. "And what exactly would you be investing?" He smirked. "Our time, our knowledge, our name, your name." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Where were your names when I was sleeping on a cot, when I was starving to keep the lights on, when I was one patient away from losing it all?" Dean waved his hand dismissively. "That's the past. Don't be emotional. This is about the future, about money." Claire chimed in, her voice honeyed but venomous. "You don't really think you built this all on your own, do you? You carry our last name. This clinic's success is tied to the Carter family. You owe us. Owe them." The word rang in my skull like a gunshot. I clenched my fists under the desk. The walls of my sanctuary seemed to close in, the air heavy with betrayal. My mother leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Riley, don't be selfish. This is bigger than you. Share it with the family. We deserve it. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked the empty halls of the clinic, hearing their voices echo in my head. We deserve it. You owe us. Don't be selfish. My rage boiled until it became something darker, colder. They wanted in without ever paying a dime. Fine, I'd give them exactly what they deserved. But on my terms. The plan took weeks. I smiled at them during dinners, nodded at their suggestions, pretended to consider their offers. Meanwhile, I worked behind the scenes. I hired a lawyer, rewrote contracts, transferred ownership of every brick, every chair, every stethoscope into a trust under my name alone. I created shell companies, layered protections, so that not a single drop of sweat I shed could ever be touched by their greedy hands. Finally, I invited them to the clinic for a family meeting. The waiting room was empty, the blinds drawn, the smell of antiseptic sharp in the air. They sat around the table, smug and expectant, so Dean said, adjusting his tie, "Are you ready to finalize our partnership?" I slid a stack of papers across the table. Their eyes lit up. They reached for the pens, hungry wolves ready to devour. But as they flipped through the pages, their smiles faded. "What is this?" Claire demanded. My voice was calm, colder than the steel instruments in the next room. "It's a declaration, legally binding, stating that none of you have any claim, present or future, to this clinic, that you acknowledge, in writing, that everything here belongs to me alone." Dean's face reddened. "Are you insane?" "No," I said, leaning forward. "I'm finally sane. For years I begged for your support, and you spat in my face. Now that it's thriving, you slither back, thinking you can feast on what you never sowed. But this clinic is my blood, my bones, my breath. You will never touch it." My father slammed his fist on the table. "We are your family, Riley." I stood, my shadow falling across them like a blade. Family doesn't show up only when the gold is shining. Family doesn't mock you while you bleed and then demand your crown when you rise. You are not my family. You are parasites. The silence was suffocating. I watched their faces crumble, pride dissolving into rage, then disbelief. Finally, I delivered the final cut. "And one more thing," I said, sliding another envelope across the table. "Inside are invoices, every meal I paid for when you mocked me, every loan I begged for and never received, every hour I spent alone while you celebrated your own successes. It's not money I want, it's acknowledgement. Sign those papers, admit your greed, or step out of my life forever." They left without signing. Their footsteps echoed down the hall like retreating cowards, and as the door closed behind them, I felt the weight lift from my chest. I stood alone in my clinic, my sanctuary, knowing the truth. Revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about denying them the feast they thought they were entitled to. Justice wasn't fire or blood. It was silence, exile, and the iron walls I built around my kingdom. And in that silence, I finally heard it. The sound of my own heartbeat, steady and unbroken. A rhythm of victory that no one could ever steal from me again. My name is Riley. I built my clinic from scratch, and I buried my family outside its walls, not in graves, but in the cold eternity of my refusal. That was my revenge.